week. Dan the Man, what does that mean for this game?
Yeah, it's Saquon Barkley in the run game. Time to step up. This is an enormous loss for the Philadelphia Eagles. Everybody knows that in crunch time and go-to moments or gotta-have-it moments, third downs, the game winner or game sealer of last week, AJ's the guy that they kind of build their pass game around. No AJ, Devontae's still plenty capable, and a player like Dallas Goedert still plenty capable. But if there was ever a week up until this point, 8 weeks into the season, that the Eagles just desperately needed to get their run game going, to have their offensive line play significantly better, to have their star tailback take over a game, it's this one. This is a massive loss for the Eagles offense.
Yeah, all week we've been talking about how the Eagles finally leaned into that under center play action passing attack last week. I would argue that this injury makes it even more important to lean into that.
Yes.
Because you don't want to just count on A.J. Brown to win on one-on-one outside the way they so often do in the passing game. And by the way, Devontae Smith was on the receiving end of two of the biggest shot plays off of play action. He is phenomenal against zone coverage. I also think, and Marcus, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, that if that under center play action game gets going, it'll open things up in the run game because the linebackers will be more cognizant of getting beat down the field. And suddenly you see how play action pass is not only the run helping the pass can help the run, which, as Dan said, needs to be very improved in this game.
I agree with both of you all on that point, and that is the point, MK, is to give them enough signature change at the line of scrimmage to make sure you're creating space for Saquon before the ball is snapped. The other thing is this, too, y'all. Remember this. Saquon can be used as a pass catcher. First thing that came to my mind when A.J. Brown wasn't playing was, do you get to some of the screen game? Do you create some of the sleight of hand between Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley to make up potentially for some explosive plays? And we talked about this in the weeks previous. Find ways to get Saquon the ball in open space, which is one thing that I think has been missing as well, more than him just coming out of the backfield. This is an opportunity for Patullo to figure out ways to use Saquon Barkley to either dictate the way the defense is going to play everybody else or vice versa. Use everybody else to find space for Saquon. We just watched the San Francisco 49ers use Christian McCaffrey in that way to become a really prominent pass catcher in a win that they needed to have. I'm looking forward to see if Philly has any opportunity to do that with Saquon Barkley to either dictate coverage or make him a big part of the passing game as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, fella. I just don't think that's going to be who they are in such a short period of time as well. I know AJ didn't practice at all this week, but are they really going to kind of change their stripes? I just want to see with Kevin Patullo, I think your point of bringing his name up is huge. Will they move Devontae around just a little bit? I'm not saying you have to become the San Francisco 49ers or the Los Angeles Rams in that regard, but will they move him around just a little bit? I think there's two things that also I'd look for. Will they utilize Jalen's legs just a little bit more? And then will they utilize more RPOs just to get some cheap yards? I totally agree with Mina. This is the perfect time as well to go back under center, continue to create that part of your identity or whatnot, and see if you. I know Jordan Mailata talked about it this week. How much easier it is for them and their offensive linemen and the angles that they get to play with. Continue to lean on your play action because it helps lesser receivers get open. So that's the challenge. Will he do more of that, Kevin Patullo?
Dio, I agree with you on maybe not changing their stripes, but do you think there will be, and this is a question for you, do you think that having Saquon line up somewhere pre-snap wise and then move him back into an original position could change the picture and the look? Because I know if I was playing defense, it would, with a player of that caliber, us potentially not knowing where his alignment would be pre-snap most of the time.
Yeah, and I would do more of that, to your point, this week, because if you're the Giants, I think this would change your defensive plan some as well. You'd be way more willing to play a little bit more man coverage. You'd be way more willing to try and come after Jalen Hurts because man coverage and blitz, he looks to A.J. Brown. And so if you're the Eagles, just trying to gather some information defensively, specifically early in this game, of how the Giants are actually going to play you in those situational football moments, trying to gather that information utilizing Saquon could be very big.
He missed 4 games last season. They went 2-2. And when you take a look at our picks, and obviously this all happened before as we have an early gong. Listen, Eagles, we all think are going to avenge their loss to the Giants from a couple of weeks ago. Mina, any thought or any of you about changing with this news? Maybe going with the Giants?
I'm not changing it. And a big part of the reason why is Jalen Carter and Quinion Mitchell playing in this game. Their absence the last time these teams played was massive. Allowed them to pick on the Chiefs' secondary cornerbacks. Jalen Carter is the most important player on the defense. So I think the defense will put up a much better fight this time around.
Everybody good? Sticking with the Eagles?
We're good.
We're all
Yep.
good. All right. Let's move on because we have news on the Giants from Adam Schefter. The NFL fined the Giants $200,000, head coach Brian Daboll $100,000, and running back Cam Scatterbo $15,000 for violating concussion protocol. Remember, Daboll entered that blue tent in that first matchup with the Eagles a couple weeks ago, and Jackson Dart was being evaluated for a concussion. Some more news. Lamar Jackson has missed the last 2 Ravens games with a hamstring injury. Baltimore has fallen to 1-5. He was a full participant in practice today in terms of his status for Week 8 as they host the Bears. Here was John Harbaugh addressing his quarterback situation today.
I know this. He practiced today, full practice today, so that was good. And we'll see where we're at going forward. We're going to talk about it as we go and figure out what we got to do to try to win the game. I mean, that's really what we're going to try to do. You know, what's our best opportunity to win the football game on Sunday? Where does everybody stand, including number 8, Lamar, and anybody else? And that's just how it goes. And you do your best. And really, you could, I'm sure, when we do talk about it at length, you know, but it's not really a public conversation. And we're going to try to put our best team out there and play our best.
So we will see. Stand by. Courtney Cronin is on her way to Baltimore to cover the game. What can you tell us about Lamar this week in his preparation?
He was a full participant today, upgraded from limited on Wednesday and Thursday. During those practices, he took snaps behind Tyler Huntley, who is now QB2, by the way. It's not just Lamar Jackson that we're talking about here. They have a new backup who would play if Lamar cannot, but took snaps behind Huntley, behind Cooper Rush. And John Harbaugh did not want to say what he saw from Lamar Jackson, how he was moving in practice, but that's the key here. Somebody who has a hamstring injury, has not played since that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. How is he going to look when he's playing, if he's playing quarterback? I talked with Kevin Byard, Bears safety, about this week, and one of the things that he was trying to stress is that you want to make him move laterally, healthy or not, because if he can escape, especially going through the pocket, he's as dangerous of a runner as anybody on that team. And what the Bears are expecting is that they're going to get a heavy dose of Derrick Henry in this game, because that is what the Ravens need to lean on if Lamar is out there, not 100% healthy, or if it is a backup quarterback situation. They've got to get Henry going, because we saw that was successful in a loss to the Rams 2 weeks ago.
Right, you've got a team that's about to fall off a cliff facing a Bears team that has won 4 in a row. Mina, what do you want to see from that offense if Lamar is able to play?
Yeah, as Courtney alluded to this, you'd like to see the run game look better. Having Lamar merely in the backfield will help that from a numbers perspective. But the other thing that'll help is another player who I noticed is back at practice, Patrick Ricard. The Ravens have only run 4 plays this entire season with 2 backs on the field. That was 351 last year, and when they did so, they averaged nearly 6 yards a carry. Almost 10 yards, by the way, play action off of that. I think his return is huge, particularly in the run game. I think they've really suffered from his absence. But having both him and Lamar out there, I think is going to go a long way towards helping a Ravens rushing attack that's been fairly anemic so far this season.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident saying our show has kind of made it a point to realize the importance of Patrick Ricard over the last 3 or 4 years. He's not as important as Lamar, but he's as important as Lamar in what they want to do, you know? And so I completely agree with that. I would be looking for 20 to 25 play action passes in this game, kind of off Courtney's point that if you're the Bears, and whether it's Lamar, a banged up Lamar or whatnot, and you're thinking, well, here comes a heavy dose of Derrick Henry. If I were Baltimore early on and often in this game, you're going to get a ton of play action. With Kyler Gordon not going for the Bears and knowing how much they wanted to pressure him, more often than not, their pressures are 2 safety deep pressures. One of the ways that you could just absolutely rip, if you look at last night's football game, 2 safety pressures, is to play action pass over the middle of the field. So if I'm Baltimore, Lamar healthy, unhealthy, 100% not, you're getting 20 to 25 play action passes a game. I'm trying to hit a ton of in breakers.
All right, let's talk about that Bears defense, all right, that they'll be facing, because we have made so much, obviously, about Ben Johnson and all the improvements to their offense during this 4-game winning streak. In terms of their defense, though, they're allowing 20 fewer points per game over the last 4 games. They have 15 takeaways, by far the most in the NFL. And Swagoo, you think that there is a potential mismatch in this game? When we see the Bears on the offensive side, what are you watching for?
Yeah, I'm going with DeAndre Swift. I think he's become a big prominent part, and it's something that Ben Johnson wanted to finally get going. And you can see the explosive nature of the run game starting to creep his head back into it. Obviously, him coming from Detroit, the run game was a big part of that, but not just the run game. Jahmyr Gibbs was an intentional draft pick that me, Mina, and Dan sat on stage while the draft was going on and was like, what, a running back? But now we see what dividends that is paying. DeAndre Swift was thought of in that regard when he came out of college at the University of Georgia as one of those one-touch, one-cut, explosive play backs. And I think Ben Johnson is now starting to get a lot out of this run game in Chicago, but also getting a lot out of the individual skill set of DeAndre Swift, which I'm looking forward to seeing if they can continue this throughout the rest of the season. Because another way to develop your quarterback is to give him a weapon like that, either handing the ball off or out of the backfield where you can create explosive plays. And I think it goes a long way in Caleb Williams' success and comfort in playing a quarterback position as well.
So you know how Lamar Jackson is the only player on the Ravens injury report who carries a designation for this game. He is questionable. We'll see if he plays. The Bears injury report's a little bit more lengthy. And to Swagoo's point, real quick on DeAndre Swift, I talked to him earlier this week. He said that his groin injury that he's been working through in practice, he's questionable. That is a maintenance thing, so he is expected to play. However, some injury news here on the defensive side of the ball. They will be without starting cornerbacks Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. Rather, Kyler Gordon and Tyreek Stevenson. So Brisker and Kevin Byard,
that's
significant,
news, right?
And what this means for a defense that leads the league in takeaways right now, they want to continue to see that number go up. They're at 16. They're facing a team with a -7 turnover differential. That's second worst in the league. Going to be a big challenge to do that without 2 of your top cornerbacks, and we know that Jalen Johnson has not played since week 2. But it is a task that they're going to have to try to figure out with the players that they have. The one thing that players have stressed to me about the changes on defense and why that number is going up is that the position they're being put in. They're being coached to do it, but they're also being put in better position. Tremaine Edmonds, a linebacker who moved from Mike to Will a couple of weeks ago, it's yielded 3 interceptions so far in the season. So they'll try, even though they're injured, they're going to try to keep that number going.
Nobody knows the Bears better than you do, Courtney Cronin, an encyclopedia, and I'm so happy for you, at least that they're winning. Now, Courtney can't, she's reporting on the game, so she can't pick. Mina, however, is the only one on the Ravens. Mina, what do you know that we don't?
I mean, the Ravens are getting healthy at the wrong time, and it sounds like the Bears aren't. Another player we haven't talked about much, Roquan Smith getting back. I guess it's not really a revenge game, but gets to go back against his old team. I think that is massive for a defense that has really struggled this year to stop the run.
Yeah, that's a really good storyline in this one as well.